Ready, timekeeper. So you, Andrew, just introduce yourself, your priorities and why we should vote for you. You have 2 minutes starting from now.
Hi everyone, I'm Andrew King and I'm about action, not politics. So I'm about looking after what we have. When I became mayor, our footpaths were run down. We've increased that budget by $2 million. Our water world needed an $11 million fix. Our Central City Library needed earthquake rating, and our roads needed bigger budgets, and we've done all of that, and we're very proud of where we're going with my councillors. I'm about growth. We opened up Peacocks, which has been talked about for 30 years. We've got that across the line. We've got a new bridge going across the Waikato River. We've got a new bridge going over Waiwere Drive with a full flyover. We've got new cycleways going in, and it's just growth is very important. We've got 40 people coming into our city every week. That's a busload of people. I'm about relationships. We've built strong relationships with central government. We've got $250 million into our city over the last 3 years that we don't have to pay back from central government. That's never happened in the history of our city before, and that's about relationships. I'm also about strong relationships with our other major partner, and that's iwi, Tainui in our case. I'm about transport choices. We've got the rail going to Auckland, $65 million from central government for that. Car shares, which are up and running now with their loop service. We've got scooters arriving on Friday. Lima are bringing their scooter fleet down. I'm about filling up our buses. Our buses are driving around empty. We've got our disabled going on our buses at no charge, and we've got our youth riding on our buses for free on the weekends and public holidays. So that's fantastic. I'm about looking after our community assets and building new community assets. We've got 4 new gardens going in at Hamilton Gardens. We've got new sports fields, a new town centre, and a new library going in our northeast. Is that it?
15 seconds. You had 15 seconds.
Thank you, Andrew.
Next up we have Angela O'Leary. So 2 minutes, Angela.
This is frustrating. So don't go warning, just...
No, do it.
Okay, right.
We're
Do
used
what
to
makes
the
you
bell
happy,
and
Kelly.
chamber,
Okay.
although we usually ignore it, don't we?
Good afternoon, my name is Angela O'Leary and I'm standing for the Mayoralty. I believe that council and the city needs an experienced mayor. I have 12 years serving the people of the city and 12 years serving the city. I have served those 12 years as a dedicated city councillor. I announced my mayoralty in January and I've spent the last 4 months door knocking because I wanted to go on a bit of a listening tour. I wanted to hear from the people that I represent because as an elected member it's not my job to make decisions for you, it's my job to represent you. So I was door knocking and it didn't matter where I door knocked, whether that was the east or the west or the south. The people that I spoke to, and they had lots of cups of tea and lots of pieces of cake, told me there were 2 important things that were key for them. The first one was rates. And people are concerned about the financial certainty and what rates may or may not do in the future. The second one was trust. People have lost faith in council. When we went through the long-term plan, we had a record number of submissions, 2,197 submissions. And a lot of those decisions that we made ignored what those submissions wanted. So that trust and those rates are the 2 top issues. Now, I have a plan for both of those. I do have some flyers and we will probably get an opportunity to leave those somewhere. My first one is I'm the only mayoral candidate that has committed to delivering to the residents a low rates plan, and I will align rates to the cost of living in my first term. Now, I have a plan for that and it can be done. I won't have enough time to share that with you today. The second thing about trust is about transparency, and it's actually our role to bring democracy and to bring transparency and to bring openness to you. I understand that, so I'm asking for residents to trust me with their vote.
Thank you, Angela. All right, Jack Gielen, you ready to go?
Yep.
There you go, get into it.
We will cut the mic off if you go over time.
My name's Jack Gielen. I'm standing for Hamilton Mayoralty and also for Hamilton Council. I have 3 props here. The first one is the multicultural coloured hat, which represents Maori representation, diverse communities, because there's something wrong with our communities at the moment and not being served properly. The second one is the mediatorial rod that I have in my hand, the reign of King Jesus. And the third one is a complete sweep of the whole council, because we need a new breed in there. Okay, let's get the old boys network right out of it. Here. Now I have a rap song. Here we go. Democracy, transparency, accountability and integrity. Stop council playing off one against the other. Stop executive fat cat salaries and preferred contractors. Stop the elitists cramping on the poor. Justice, equality, evermore. Stop the high rates of spending and debt. Stop the high development costs for homes. Stop high rentals and profiteering. Wealth distribution, sharing. Boarding houses, upskilling everyone. Responsible citizens having fun. Okay, now, as the father of the city, ambassador of light, peace and love, I'll be the Chief Executive Officer, Chairperson. As your Mayor, I'll provide new leadership, new vision and new direction. Goodness knows we need it. A fairer future for all, change that works for everyone. I am an anti-corruption officer, bringing a clean sweep of council operations, democracy, transparency, accountability and integrity. I will expose the CEO $500,000 rip-off and the leader's ownership of 20 homes. I am in favour of, I'll just, 15 seconds left, haven't I? Yeah. Like praying for debt cancellation and community restoration, global economic restructuring, creating equal societies and
Thank you very much.
includes the promotion of human rights and the protection of the environment. Jack Gielen for Mayor and for Hamilton City Council. Thank you very much.
I guess we can look on the bright side. We're not going to be sued like the National Party was for that one.
Hopefully
Right,
not.
coming up next, we've got James Casson.
Well, that's a hard act to follow. I won't be doing that, Jack. James Casson. I'm running for council and mayor this year. First term councillor, previously a police officer in New Zealand and Australia for 28 years. Look, the things we walked into in our first term in council here, the rundown Founders Theatre, Waterworld, the library, and we've also got the municipal pools out here. The council didn't look after them. And it's very sad because this 3-year term we've had, this council we're in at the moment, has been the most unprecedented in spending on all sorts of frivolous projects that we should be going back to basics with. So look, I stand for no regional fuel tax. Now the reason for that is, when we came to the 9.7% average rates hike in Hamilton here, the only reason we looked at the regional fuel tax is to try and get that rates hike down from the original 16.5% that was mooted by the Mayor. So that was one of the things we looked at. So when we were told we couldn't get that by the government, we worked through and got it down to 9.7%, which is still not good for those on fixed incomes. Your incomes don't go up by 9.7% average a year. So if the government brought in a regional fuel tax here, then it would be only wise or only fair to take in a rates decrease. Look, I stand for small business. Now, small business in Hamilton make up 97% of all business in Hamilton, and they employ 27% of people in Hamilton as well. They go through a lot of regulations and red tape that they have to go through to just get anything done. Now, it's not acceptable. We have to make it easier for small business to do their business so that people can be employed here in Hamilton. Our rates and our ratepayers and our development community are maxed out at the moment. Okay, that is not sustainable. We can't keep rising rates and we can't keep rising the DC contributions on each section. So, yeah, thank you.
All right, Louise, ready when you are?
I hope you don't mind, I've got my phone. It's because I've just got so many opinions. I had to structure
Damn
this.
millennials.
Ko karangahaki te maunga, to whangamata te moana, ko Ngāti Pākehā toku iwi, ko Hutt o Ngaroahia toku hapu, ko Hodge o Tamaki Makaurau toku hapu, kei Kirikiriroa toku kainga e Naianei, ko Louise Hutt toku ingoa. My vision for our city is one we can be proud of, one that looks like us and looks after us, one where we can feel safe and celebrated. We need representatives who know our struggles and believe in our aspirations for our city.
Amen.
Having been the CEO of an electricity company, I understand the responsibility of providing core services. Having been a student in our city and struggled to make ends meet, I know the effects of council's decisions on our everyday lives and the realities that people face. As a board member of Go Eco, I also understand the role of governance and the importance of sustainability. I'm a strong believer in real community consultation so that our city feels heard and the impact of council's decisions are fully understood by the people making them. With a background in technology, social enterprise, media arts, and sustainability, I am standing for climate action, improved representation, better housing, and public transport. We need to be working together to make sure our city is connected, thriving, and sustainable for years to come. Thank you.
I ngā mana, i ngā reo, rauranga tērā mā, tēnei te mihi nui kia koutou, kua hui mai I tēnei rā. Thank you for coming out, everyone, and welcome. You know, I love this city. I've passionately represented you as Hamilton at a local, regional and national level now for over 20 years, 18 of which have been in local government. I'm not afraid to speak out for what I believe in, and I'm not afraid to speak out for what's important. I believe we've got a very exciting future. We must seize the opportunities that we do have for success, but we have to do this by working with others. We need to support anything that we can to get affordable housing, strong economic development and better transport options, not just for cars, if we are to build a thriving centre. We must also take better care of the wonderful community assets that we already have, like pools, playgrounds, waterways, water services and our environment. We must not neglect these, as has been the case in previous years. We must also strongly control our finances, and of course, fair and affordable rates are a must. I know we can and we must do better also in the realm of public participation and community engagement to involve you in the decisions that shape our city. We all deserve a say in how our hard-earned rates money gets spent, and I do listen. I care about your views. I'm just going to touch on a couple of those. We were asked to identify two key issues. One of mine is finances and growth. We must control the rates, and we can do this by working smartly to find cost-effective solutions to some of our biggest challenges, because rate payers alone cannot shoulder the burden of pet projects. Growing Hamilton, we must take care of our communities. I don't want to just grow a bigger city, I want to grow a better city where local communities thrive, and this includes things like local playgrounds, local parks, local pools, and a strong natural environment. Thank you.
Okay, Andrew. There have been claims of you doing dodgy deals, for example, the purchase of the Victoria Street buildings. What will you do to ensure Hamiltonians trust what is happening on the 9th floor?
So the word dodgy means corrupt, and when you look it up in a dictionary, and it means to steal, to rip off, or to take advantage of. So I don't do any of those, so I really have nothing more to add to that question, because it's not really appropriate, the word dodgy.
Okay, we're just taking that from a quote.
It actually means corrupt.
Okay. Now, would you like to answer your second question?
Sure.
With your push for free bus rides, does that mean you've given up on car parks in Garden Place?
Look, I'm all about listening to what people say, and people have said about our city, why don't we open it up to the river? So we're opening a Central City River Park. For 30 years, they've talked about Peacock and opening Peacock up. We're doing that now. For 20 years, we've talked about opening up a library in our southwest and putting playing fields out there. We're doing that now. For years, I've heard people talk about our buses driving around empty and what are we going to do about it? We're paying for our bus drivers, we're paying for the fuel, but the buses are empty. So we've started off putting our young people on the buses, that's the 18 and under, for free in the weekends and on public holidays, and I'd like to see that slowly opened up to more and more for our young people, because if we can get our young people riding on the buses, they'll get used to riding buses. And then once they're finished with buses, they'll continue using public transport. It'll also get their parents to trust the public transport system. So I'm all about buses, opening up buses and getting people riding on buses. What's the second part of that question?
Does that mean that you've given up on car parks in Garden Place?
No, I do believe that getting people on buses is not about, it's about decluttering the roads, but it's not about having a go at people who do drive cars. Some people need to drive cars for all sorts of reasons. So by getting more people on buses, we can get 60 people on a bus, that's 60 cars off the road. And eventually it'll become more desirable to be on a bus than on a car, because buses will get through quicker, because we'll take away car parks on the side of the road and let the buses get through. Thank you.
Cool, thank you, Andrew. Just to clarify something, we've got a backup question, so there's still only 2 minutes in total for each candidate to speak, but if they're like Andrew, finish their first question quick, we've got a backup question, okay?
So you don't get off that easy if you think that you can answer the first one fast. Right. Angela, you're campaigning to keep rates to within a cost of living index. Can you explain to us in plain English what that's all about?
I can. So my plan to keep rates, to align rates to the cost of living is principle based, and this is the first time I'm sharing this with anyone tonight. The first one is to purchase prudently. Now, government and the MBI mandate government departments to have a particular way of procuring things. I personally think when people and contractors see council coming, they add a few zeros on the top. So the first thing I want to do is to look at a procurement policy. The second thing is, well, actually the first thing, and then that's the second thing. The first thing is fund core infrastructure first. That's a principle. The third thing is, I believe, either contract in or have expertise in-house, not have both. Now, I've had a look on the website and I've seen the masses of millions and millions of dollars where we have staff under delegated authority contracting out. So there's some massive savings actually there. And actually the fourth thing is about priorities. Budgets are simply about priorities. And it's no news that I wasn't a supporter of the 10-year plan or the 9.7% rates increase, because I didn't agree with many of the priorities in there. A US senator who is running for the presidential election said something some years ago that really struck a chord with me. He said, don't tell me what you value, show me your budget and I'll tell you what you value. We don't have, I know I can deliver that low rates plan, and to give you an idea, our Treasury is forecasting that to be 2% over the next 3 years. And it is, without a doubt, the number one concern of our ratepayers. So I know I can deliver it. I've done my work, I've done my plan, I've also spoken to the CE and staff, and I can deliver this because I'm here to represent you. We don't have to choose.
Thank you very much, Angela.
All right. Now, your question is, it wouldn't be an election without you, but are you for real?
Of course I'm for real. An anti-corruption officer exposing what's going on. I've worked for suicide prevention in the last 10 years. I put a Rainbow Ribbons program together. I've also worked with Indigenous therapies, Koitiakatanga, which is the guardian protectors of our societies. I also work with Families for Justice, and I attended a hui there just last week. I am an activist and a counsellor, as well as a social worker. I make no mistake about it. As an activist, I've stood up for real issues, stood on behalf of advocacy to men and women who've lost their rights to their own children. I've actually run a suicide prevention trust now for 20 years. So yes, I am for real because I have a heart for the community. I believe in community inclusion, and as a Christian pastor, I believe in the interfaith movement, representing the Muslims, representing Buddhism, representing Christians right across the board. I'm a bit concerned about sometimes how we, like in terms of freedom of speech and in terms of the election, we need to include everyone. It's the voice of the people that really matters, and some places try to shut us out, you know what I mean? But I believe we need to include everyone. It's not just about the rich. You know, some people here own 20 houses, you know what I mean? And quite frankly, I don't think they give a damn about the community and how we're really suffering. And I think that the disparities between the rich and the poor, this election is going to be about the community. This election is going to be about responsible spending and business development. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Jack.
All right, James, for you. A lot of media coverage has used you as an example of why people need to go out and vote. How do you feel this has impacted your campaign, and how does it affect your vision for the city?
Well, that question's a surprise. Look, I did. I stuffed up. I apologised and it was inappropriate. I went down to the mosque and apologised. You know, look, it's easy to label somebody when you don't know them. And, 75% of my friend list, if you call it, is people that are non-born New Zealanders. Look, I have had a lot to do with the all sorts of communities. I worked for the United Nations for 6 months and worked with all sorts of cultures and ethnicities. Look, it's easy to label somebody, like I said, but until you know that person, I think it's a pretty terrible thing to do. My son is marrying a beautiful Samoan girl in November. If I was any sort of racist, I wouldn't be for that at all. But look, I'm getting past that. I've apologised and I'm moving on. And thank you very much.
Okay, all right. Give us time for the next question for you. Crime statistics don't support your claims that safety for the city is a growing issue. What is your response to that?
Okay, the thing with, I went on about the crime surge in Hamilton. The thing with police statistics, they're notoriously unreliable because they rely on people actually reporting. Now, a lot of the stuff doesn't get reported for one reason or another. Either they don't want to claim on their, claim on insurance because it's just too little thing to claim on, and they don't report. The police have also made it a little bit harder for people to report as well by closing most of the stations. They're trying to rectify that a bit now by the 105 number they've got to report historical stuff. But it takes a while for police statistics to catch up to real life. Now, I spoke to a lot of people out there. There were 5 to 6 cars broken in one night, and the police had no reports on those whatsoever. But it was because people weren't reporting.
Thank you.
Louise, you are the youngest person running, as we all know, and you have had a lot of media coverage about your age to mobilise young voters. What can you say to put older voters at ease that you're going to look after their interests as well?
So I had a meeting with Age Concern last Monday, and I spent a lot of it talking about my parents. So I have older parents, and I mean like older parents, not going to say it, my mum's not here but she'd still kill me. But needless to say, they're both pensioners. And I think about my mum especially. So in this campaign, we have to move house, me and my partner have to move house, and that's not voluntary, but also what we found out was that my mum has been served notice where she lives. And that's a reality for her, that she also didn't have anywhere to live, potentially. And so when we were looking at what we were going to do, we factored her into our plans and said, Mum, come live with us. And obviously that's great for us. I'd love to spend more time with my mum. But it also made me think about how many of the people in our community who are older and who don't have a daughter who would just be like, yeah, Mum, come live with us, it's all good, what they would do. And, I'm somebody who has disabilities. I'm somebody who has hearing loss, so often I lip read what people are saying. I have chronic back pain. I understand what it's like to have your body feel like it's just not doing what it used to do. And now obviously I'm 26, so I'm experiencing these things as a 26-year-old, but I think it's also really important to acknowledge and talk to my mum and say, hey, how does this affect you in the realities of your life? Because, I can speak to some things and I can have an appreciation and I can have empathy, but at the end of the day, you've got to go talk to those people and say, hey, how does this affect your life? Tell me about your reality. So,
Thank you, Louise.
With 18 years in local government, including 15 for the Waikato Regional Council, in what ways have you demonstrated leadership on climate change?
On climate change, I am sit on a policy advisory group in Wellington for Local Government New Zealand, and there are 3 planks to the work that we've been advising government on, and one of those is the policy climate for Local Government New Zealand. Started off looking at an inventory of assets that were under threat because of climate change, and then went on to look at some of the mitigating factors that local government could get involved in. So that's the most recent involvement that I've had in climate change. Of course, working on the regional council, where you're dealing with natural resources, water, soil and air, a lot of what we do, especially in natural biodiversity as well, combats the effects of climate. And I'll tell you a little funny story. I went to Whangamata when I was at regional council, and we tried to tell them about the risk of tsunami. This was before the Boxing Day tsunami, by the way. And they laughed us out of house and home, and the Waikato Times wrote up a story and said, nonsense, nonsense, there's never going to be a tsunami at Whitianga. However, we're not laughing now. And in fact, Whitianga does have to have an emergency plan, which we developed at the Regional Council to protect its people from the effects of climate. So I've had a long involvement with climate, and I think it will continue.
Fantastic. We've got enough time for the second question. What does smarter growth mean to you?
Well, smarter growth to me means doing things in the most cost-effective and efficient way, because we are going to grow. The city's going to grow. It's growing already. It's growing very fast. So we need to do things in a cost-effective and expedient way in partnerships. That means looking at new financial arrangements, the potential for investments, public-private partnerships, and those kind of things. But also, to me, smart mills means building a better city, not just empty housing areas devoid of community assets.
Fantastic, thank you very much.
Okay, for our next section, it is the panel discussion, and it does involve participation in local government. So we'll start down this end with you, Paula. It's the same thing again. You've got 2 minutes to speak. Kelly will time you out. And basically, it is about improving participation in local government, acknowledging lowest voter turnout. Oh, sorry, I'm reading the wrong notes. In general, councils rated poorly on being trusted to make good decisions, managing finances well, or being effective leaders. What will you do differently to improve this, and how can we better hold you to account?
Thank you. I'm so pleased to have this question, because public participation and community engagement are great passions for me, so much so that was the focus of my professional development through this term of politics. I believe we need to get to the front end of things. I'm not happy with the way we currently operate, where information comes before you 2 days before you make a major decision, and not always have the public been involved in that discussion. That's got to change. We've got to be in and amongst our community all of the time, using all the modern tools of public engagement that there are, app-based tools, social media tools, going to where the community actually are type tools. And we need to do that well ahead of the decisions that we're making on the community's behalf. Because if you get them to feed in to a process, they're more engaged and more happy with the outcome, in my view. So an example of that, and this is the sort of thing that I want to promote more of, is Councillor Ryan Hamilton and myself had an input into how the Rotatuna Village Hub consultation was undertaken last year. And we put that in the hands of the community. So the North East Community Hub ran the open days, Somerset Village ran the open days for the seniors, and Rotatuna High School ran the consultation for the senior students. And the input we got from that was far superior to anything else I'd seen in this term. That's the kind of thing that I think can make people feel that they're valued in shaping their own future. Thank you, Paula.
Louise, same question.
Can you read it out again?
Absolutely. In general, councils are rated poorly on being trusted and making good decisions, managing finances well, or being effective leaders. What will you do differently to improve this, and how can we better hold you accountable?
So, before I was a CEO of an electricity company, I was a digital strategist, and that journey in of itself is a whole nother story. But I think this is a really critical point. It's absolutely important. And I mean, I've lived here for 8 years. I don't think I've ever been consulted on anything. And I think it's really difficult when we put the responsibility in the hands of our citizens who already have so much to do. I've worked at one point in time 3 jobs and studied. So that's like a 80 to 100 hour week workload. And then I'm still expected to turn up to council, know what's going on, make a submission, and hope that I can have some kind of input in there. It's really difficult. It's honestly so difficult. And I think as well it comes back down to the candidates and the type of elections that we hold. If 70% of Hamilton doesn't vote, that's not an individual issue, that's a systemic issue. When you drive, because I'm assuming some of you are going to drive out of here, have a look at all the hoardings around the city and make note of how many of them tell you when the election is. It's next to none of them. So we actually need candidates who are passionate about having everybody in our city understand how it works, and if it doesn't work, committed to making it better. And I mean, I've had people say to me, oh, you should go door knock on the rest homes in Hamilton and do nothing else. And I'm like, okay, but our city is so much more than people who live in the rest homes. They're really important, like I said before, but they're not everybody in our city. And so if we don't even have candidates running who want to engage everybody in our city with what we're doing, how can we expect that to flow through into actual council process?
Thank you very much.
Would you like the question again, James, or you?
Sorry?
Would you like the question?
No.
No, you're good? All right.
Yep.
They'll all know it by the end of this if we keep repeating it to everyone.
Look, when I first ran for council in 2016, the only time I saw a councillor was Leo Tooman, and that was at the Target store in Te Rapa when he was buying a lounge suite. And a lot of people back then, I knew a couple of councillors, but I didn't know everybody. There are a few people who could probably name most councillors and the mayor, but there's a lot of people out there that can't. Look, when you get into council, they give you everything. It's like drinking from a fire hydrant, we were told. Everything gets foddy all at once. But I think, to be fair, this council we've got at the moment has been probably one of the most open we have had, and one of the most visible as well, because I think most of the councils have been out there doing things. Mark and myself working on Gordonton, Thomas Road. We were out there with the public all the time doing things. And I think the next council that gets in, we should be looking at holding councillor days out in the different suburbs, so you actually get to meet your councillors, you can actually ask them questions face to face. That's one thing that we could improve on, to get a little bit more engagement there, so that you do get to know your local councillor and even councillors from the other side of the river. But we should have councillor days so that we can actually engage more with the public.
Thank you very much.
Awesome.
All right, Jack, do you mention again?
Yep.
All right. In general, council is rated poorly on being trusted and making good decisions, managing finances well, or being effective leaders. What will you do differently, and I'm sure you will do something very differently, to improve this? How can we better hold you to account?
Well, for a kick-off, we should have digital voting. We should have ballot boxes where people can go and put their vote in, because a lot of people who don't own their own homes, they don't have the opportunity to respond to the voting system. In terms of council responsibility, it's all about relatability. I mean, how many of you have approached any of these in the last 3 years? How many? Quite a few of them. That's not too bad. Probably about half of you. But I mean, I remember when Julie Hardacre stood, I talked to her about the political whores of Babylon one time, how she's just sucking up to the rich and this sort of thing. Is she really there to serve the people? But she had a heart for the people, because she used to be every week down in Garden Place, you remember? And you could talk to her. So it's got to be 24/7 access, that you can come into my office anytime, night or day. You take, for instance, the youth of this town. There used to be a youth council, rangatahi and goodness knows what else. Now they're no longer there anymore. So to me, that is disgusting. We should have a youth council. We should have democratic forums. We should be discussing issues with community consultation, so all the people groups, all the Muslims and Christians, they can come and talk at any time, so we can have the councillors interfacing. I mean, I'm fed up with the idea of councillors just getting in for 3 years and then you don't see them again, you know what I mean? So they need to be answerable to the people. When I shared with Andrew here about the street people and, City Safe and all the rest of it, he said they were a bunch of misfits. Did you mean that, Andrew?
Did I say that, Jack?
Yes, you did at the time. So we've got to be concerned, even the people on the lower strata of society have their place in society. We need to include everyone in our society and work out plans to work in with those people and help them out with wraparound services. Thank you.
Thank you, Jack.
So the question is about rebuilding trust, which is one of my key priorities. If you don't know what's going on, you cannot hold your council to account. It's as plain as it gets. So I have a whole list of things that I'm going to do if I'm elected as mayor. One of them is councillor clinics. We need to take democracy to you. We're supposed to be the expert in the district of democracy. Instead of turning up once every 3 years, we come out to you. So it's councillor clinics. I'm going to implement, if I'm elected as mayor, advisory boards again. I've already suggested an ethnic advisory board. We used to have youth council. We used to have council of elders. We used to have arts. These were really wonderful. I'm also suggesting a rainbow advisory board. This is about bringing the community in and rebuilding that trust again. I'm going to stop the financial jargon. I know that elected members, sometimes we get bamboozled by the amount of information and financial information that we have to digest. I am committed to stopping the financial jargon. If I'm elected as mayor, another thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to implement a plain English policy in my first 100 days. Because, you know, it's very difficult to read council reports and then have to go back and read it again and read it again. And often I might go up to the report writer and say, "What did you mean?" And they'll give me 3 or 4 words. And I say to them, "Well, why didn't you write that?" So these are the kinds of barriers that are there. They're not there just for the elected members around the table. They are there for the public as well. So those are a few ideas. But transparency is not just a word that needs to be bandied around. It is in actions, it is in plans. And if you understand what's going on, you can hold us to account, which means you are an informed voter at election time. So those are some of the ideas that I plan to implement.
Thank you very much. Do you need the question repeated, Andrew?
No, I think we've got it.
You think you've got it? So what we want to know, Picard, Kirk, which is the best captain?
We'll pass on that.
Okay. Oh, there's no right answer there.
Look, firstly, I want to commend Politics In The Tron for what they're doing, and they really are neutral, and they really aren't out to trap anybody, and they really are just about getting people out and talking. So I really commend you on the part that you play. Look, democracy is what we've been handed, is what we work with, and it's how it works. Most people outside of this room couldn't name more than 3 councillors out of the 12 that are in. And most people can't, a lot of people out there can't name the mayor, because I know, because I go into events and people don't know who I am. And that's the system that we've got, okay? That's what we've been handed, and that's what we've got to work with. We have an election every 3 years, and central government gets a lot of attention, as they should, and we all line up on election day to vote. But with local government, there's very little interest. You could argue that 33% of people who voted in Hamilton voted because the other 66% were content. I don't actually believe that, but that you could argue that. I mean, you can argue this any which way you like. You could argue that we had the youngest population in New Zealand, a huge young population, and so they don't follow politics, and most people don't start voting until they're in their 40s.
How are you going to be accountable?
So when I got in as mayor, first thing I did was I stopped all catering. We were catered dinners and meals and all sorts of things. My concept was, as a tradie, which is what I am, is that you go down to the shop and buy your food just like the tradesman does, just like the cleaner does. We stopped, we had a huge amount of papers that we used to have when I was a councillor, and I didn't control what was happening in Pink, which is confidential. We stopped all of that. There's very little that's in confidential now, unless it's protecting a natural person, or if it has financial implications. Otherwise, everything else is out there. It's in the public for everyone to see. So I do encourage people to get out and vote, and I encourage you, who are an educated group, to get out there and encourage people to vote, because each one of you has influence over 100 people.
Awesome. Thank you very much for that, Andrew. All right, next up we're going to do a series of yes-no questions. Amanda here is handing out some very handy little forms. Very, very simple. So on one side, the candidates have the word yes. On the other side, the candidates have the word no. This is a little concerning. All right, so have you got a handle on which way's which?
This is the real test, right?
This is the real test. Absolutely. So, we're going to try a test question. Do aliens exist? It's a yes/no question, Louise. There's no maybe about it.
Who am I to say what's out there?
Is Hamilton the greatest city to live in? Woohoo, of course.
Can you sing the second verse of the New Zealand national anthem?
Oh,
Nice, thanks for the honesty. Who said yes? James, can you give us the second verse in Māori, the Māori voice, Māori verse.
All right, so you've got the concept down, you know how this all works. Excellent.
oh, those were all test questions.
Those were all test questions. Absolutely. Right, first question. Will you vote to change from first past the post to STV?
Nice. Make sure you hold them up for a good few seconds so we get a photo of that. That's cool.
Yeah, we take the photo, stick it online, you're accountable forever.
Okay, second question. Will you keep the Māngai Māori seats if elected as mayor?
Yes.
Kia ora, thank you.
We are live streaming it all at the moment, and if you want to take photos, you're more than welcome to. Please feel free to use the hashtag Politics In The Tron and vote in the Tron.
Good point, thank you, audience member.
Should we stand up for this one?
Yes,
Yeah, why
all
not?
right.
Standing up, stretch out a little bit.
Stretch your legs, get off those horrible stools. Sorry about that.
All right, next question. This is a real question, nothing to do with aliens. Should council consider social equity in their decisions more?
Yes.
Cool, hold them up steady.
Sorry about that. Should council consider social equity in their decisions more?
Right, we'll just wait for James' Soul co-workers to leave. Okay, next one is, would you support a call for central government to reduce election spending?
You mean for candidates?
Yes. Yes. They're putting up too many signs.
All right, next question. Should there be a 3-term limit for councillors?
Yes. 2 terms if you die. It's not a
Sorry, 3-term limit?
Three-term limit.
3 terms and you're gone. They're in for 40 years most of the time.
Okay. If elected mayor, will you ensure councillors undergo te tiriti training?
Yes. They need to be improved.
Cool.
Hang on, sorry.
Come on, Jay. We all need a...
All right, next question. Will you vote at every opportunity to ensure that employees, whether staff or contractors, are paid a living wage?
Okay, next question. Is New Zealand a racist country?
Yes, in some ways. Yes. Look at all the uplifts in Moranga Tamariki. Sorry, it is.
Should we have declared a climate emergency?
Yes. Yes.
Are developers in our city currently paying their fair share of costs?
No. They need to pay more. Give more to the people. Hey.
At any point in the last 3-year term, have you been embarrassed to be a Hamiltonian?
Yes. I have been embarrassed. There's too many issues. I'm ashamed of the council.
It's a different question.
Fantastic. That's it. Those are our yes/no questions. Brilliant. Thank you very much,
Thank you,
candidate.
guys.
just going to throw a slight spanner in the works because unlike almost every other Meet the Candidate event I have ever been to in 21 years of dealing with politics in the city, we're running ahead of time. It's fantastic. This is all down to Kelly's organisation. Absolutely. So, we're going to do something very risky and open to the floor for 5 minutes of questions. Now, there are some rules. 3 minutes? Sorry, 3 minutes. There are some rules. The question needs to be aimed in general, not at a specific candidate, and it needs to be a question, not a specific statement. Who wants to go first?
Paul, is that 3 minutes to ask questions or is that 3 minutes?
2.5 now.
Is it 3 to ask and 3 to answer?
1 to answer.
1 to answer.
Yeah. All right, so who wants to go first? All right, I see a hand going up over there, which the tall fellow, I'm guessing you know? He looks very familiar.
Is that me?
Can you explain why you're either for or against transferring to STV, or why you're not for or against staying with first past the post?
Yeah, I'll go first. Most people don't understand STV.
Andrew, you on the mic?
Oh, you probably heard, did you? I'll just dive in first. Most people don't understand anything else apart from first past the post, and we've seen that with we've seen that around the world. So until people get their hands around it and understand it, and maybe people in this room may understand it, but most people on the street wouldn't have a clue.
Actually, I'm not sure that that's true. I think people do understand the differences, but they're often afraid of change. And actually, again, it's up to the experts in democracy who are council to make sure that that communications message is very, very clear, because the new council is going to be making that decision. And I'm all for more diversity around the table, and I believe in my heart that STV absolutely will deliver that.
Yeah, it empowers the other
Right,
people.
I think, Jack, sorry to interrupt. Because we are doing this completely nuts, we're going to cut you off there and we're going to go for another question. And we're going to get other candidates to answer this question. So, Alvina.
I do apologise, everybody.
Kia ora. I want to know whether you would support a campaign to remove Captain Hamilton from the Garden Place. Will you never consult him? He is an imperialist killer and he doesn't belong in the Garden Place. So would you support the
All right, so we're going to go with Jack and James with this one, going down the line.
I would remove it, in actual fact.
Fantastic,
Because
Jack.
to do with the confiscation and so forth, it left a lot of hurt and shame and whakama, particularly amongst the Maori people. And we need to honour real leaders in this nation who are progressive and for the people.
Like Mr. Whippy.
Thank you, Dave. Jack?
Thank you, Alvina. Expecting that sort of question, I think. No, I wouldn't. Now, look, I've read a few of the history books as well, and Hamilton was shot virtually as soon as he got off the boat. He wasn't a very good soldier at all. I don't know why he is in Hamilton, but he is in Hamilton. But I'd like to see another statue either placed near him or somewhere in the close vicinity to show both sides, Maori and Caucasian here, to show both parts of our history. Thank you.
I'm sorry, but you don't read Wikipedia. I think he was actually at Gate Park. That's where he was.
Yes, he was killed at Gate Par, yes, you're correct.
All right, next question. One question left. We've got 2 candidates left to answer. Who wants to dive in? Who has any ideas what they want to say? Or am I going to have to make something up on the spot and keep talking? Please, someone come up. Go for it, sir.
Well, the candidates tell me if they achieve mayoral status in the town, will they start to take notice of the west side of the river? I'm tired of hearing too much about what's happening at Road 2.
Fair questions. Louise.
Yes. Is that
All right.
good? Yes.
Without doubt, the mayor and all the councillors represent the entire city. And even though there's 2 wards, they should represent the entire city, that's what I'm saying. And I agree with you that we have to look at all parts of our city, east, west, new and old. And that was why I was quite pleased to push for local playgrounds, first to go into Hillcrest because they were very old, and second to go into Melville.
Guys, for that impromptu from the audience, you guys handled it well. Now we're on to our last segment of the evening, and that is famous last words from each candidate. Now, you only have 1 minute this time, and we will start down from Andrew's end, if that's all right. Thank you, Louise. You ready, timekeeper? Yep. When you're ready.
15 no bell.
Oh, if you want me to. Do you want me to?
No, just So, I was brought up in a family in a rented house. I shared a bedroom with 2 brothers, and I didn't have much, but we had a lot of love. And I believe that it's all about families and building strong families, and from strong families come strong communities. And that's why, although I'm a businessman, and although I'm pretty black and white, I'm here to have a strong financial foundation and to look after our most vulnerable in our city. And that's why I proposed free buses for the disabled community. That's why I proposed. I'm done.
Are those famous last words?
Look, I'm asking you to trust me with your votes to become your mayor. I am a single woman with a mortgage. I've lived in Dinsdale for a very, very long time. I'm 52. I have served my apprenticeship with the city. I have the experience. I have no hidden agenda, no vested interests. To serve as an elected member is such an honour that very few people in this world get to do, and it is a privilege that I feel deeply. I have learnt mistakes along the way. I have served my apprenticeship. I'm asking for your vote. Thank you.
Jack Gielen serves Hamilton's needs for new leadership, new vision and new direction, remembering that the community is the most important, people are the most important aspect of our lives. He tangata. I'd serve the Maori people, the young people, the elderly people. I'd be there at your beck and call. You could come and see me anytime, night or day. And I believe in democratic forums and listening to the voice of the people. Thank you.
Thank you, Jack. I have no political affiliations or business connections here in Hamilton. I stand for a back to basics policy where it's about time we stop the frivolous spending in Hamilton and actually went back to what we're meant to be doing. And that's collecting rubbish, keeping our infrastructure up to a standard, our roads usable on footpaths, and also to have, the good water coming into your house and the wastewater going away. We should go back to basics and save a bit of money for once.
Thank you.
We need a city council, and we need leaders on that city council who acknowledge that our system is broken when 70% of Hamilton isn't voting. Our voter enrolment is up 6%, but that's still not good enough. We need people who are going to listen to us, who are going to take us seriously, who we feel are approachable, who look like us and sound like us and understand our issues. And I don't believe that's possible when you have a council full of people who have been career politicians. So we need some real people on that council who understand our realities.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. First of all, I want to start by thanking you for the huge amount of support that I've had over the 18 years that I've represented you in local government. I'm very, very grateful. And now I'm asking you to support my style of leadership for mayor. It's a positive, inclusive leadership style. I've lived here for over 40 years with my family. My leadership journey began on the kindergarten committee and went on to be on the board of trustees at Knight Normal School and Girls High, and then on Waikato Regional Council. I give 110% to the job, and I will do if you support me as your mayor. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Paula. First of all, I want to thank the candidates for coming along tonight. I know this is the first big event that you've got to deal with. I know it's always nerve-wracking when you've got a big event like this and they bring in somebody like me from Auckland who you know is going to be really, really annoying and ask you questions that you don't like. So thank you very much for coming along, facing up to the people and taking the questions. There's also been a live stream going on this whole time, and we're recording this as well. So we'll be having a couple of different versions of the video up online on the Politics In The Tron Facebook page after the end of the day, but the live stream is going right now. And the comments, I don't know if you've had a chance to look at them, they've been very interesting. And I would thoroughly recommend, if you get a chance, to have a look at it. Jack, Facebook is this big website where people will connect and talk to each other. Now, I've got a list of people here that I also need to thank. The team at the Meteor for allowing us to take over the Nancy Caiger Gallery for the evening. Nancy herself. And Coffee Culture. Now, I should point out, you're in the Nancy Caiger Gallery, and today is her 65th birthday. So happy birthday. Nancy is also on the other side of the world right now, watching us through the live stream. We also need to thank Free FM for everything. You'll see their signs here. You can listen to Free FM on 89 FM, or you can stream and download directly from the website and the app. And they've got apps for everything. Like Alexa has an app that you can use for listening to Free FM, so there is no reason not to be listening to them. We need to thank Politics In The Tron's volunteers, especially Emma, Daphne, Fiona, Phil, Jake, and Holly, who's, I think, also on the live stream paying attention. Holly came last. Holly, yeah. We also need to thank Elections New Zealand for coming along, who are sitting in there. If you haven't done so already, please make sure that your enrolment details are up to date. And if you know people who are not enrolled, get them enrolled. And if they sit there and ask questions like, well, why, what's the point, what's going to happen to me, just show them the videos of what you saw tonight and remind them that the last election was won on 6 votes. So it's really
Very
important
close.
to get people out there voting. So
Be
again,
informed.
absolutely. So I think that's me all wrapped up.
Yep, thank you, Paul. So no need to rush off into the night. You're more than welcome to get a drink, mingle with those candidates that are here. Please, be respectful. And basically, thank you all for coming out here tonight. It's been awesome to actually see some faces of some of our fans, and I want to sort of meet some names of our, prominent commenters that like to comment on everything. But it's good. It helps our engagement, and we love it. Thank you all. Thank you all, Mayor candidates. Best of luck, and
Thank
have
you
a good
very much,
night.
everyone. Have a great night.